So this is an exciting time. I was watching what was just happening here, and my favorite part of church is after church when you get to kind of mingle, and that's going to be the most enjoyable time today too, I'm sure. Because you get to share those ideas, you get to share who you are and what makes America great. You get to talk about the inspirations and the relationships that define who we are and this party that we are. For those of you who don't know about me and my story, I literally lived the American dream. I grew up in a single-parent family where my mom was a secretary when she was deployed. I remember we went for about 5 years, but she said we didn't have any red meat. I disagree. I seem to remember having hot dogs and an occasional can of Spam. I'm not sure if that's considered red or not. Grew up, went to, I was going to go enlist in the Army, and I just, by the way, noticed we have all 4 services here. For those of you who haven't identified that they're all running for office, you do have the Air Force, you do have the Navy, you do have the Army, and of course, you do have the United States Marine Corps. It's okay, guys. It's all right. So I was actually going to go enlist in the Army at one time. I was going to be an airborne ranger, and I thought that was real cool. And then I saw this movie called Top Gun. And it transformed everything I was thinking about at the time. I was like, wow, how do you do that? They said, you got to go to college. Like, all right. So I only applied to one college. I literally left my college. I was only 17 years old, so I went from going to boot camp instead to go to college. But everybody I met in the Navy ROTC program that impressed me, everybody who was just a little bit over the top, trying to be a little bit more motivated, a little more fit, a little more dedicated, a little more loyal, those guys were all Marines. And I want to be just like them. So I said, how do you do that? They said, we're going to go to officer training school where there's about a 40% attrition rate. So I went, got an undergraduate, and picked up a scholarship. And then life got much easier for a guy who at one point in college was literally hand washing my clothes in the sink using shards of soap left over from other people in the showers and then hang drying in my room, to a guy who had a scholarship and could actually afford a pizza occasionally. And then I was able to go to Mountain Warfare School and become a pilot in the Marine Corps. And I did the Marines for 16 years, several tours over in combat zones in Africa and the Persian Gulf. I spent some time off the coast of Somalia, Iraq, Rwanda, and then was called to another job. When God calls you, you better pay attention because He has plans. And it doesn't matter what you think you are, God defines you. And sometimes when you think things are unachievable, get out of the way, because if you're called to do it, it doesn't matter what your academic prowess is, it doesn't matter what your physical prowess is, it matters what God has defined you as and what He's going to use you for. Sometimes that's not exactly what you think it's going to be. But if you took a kid who grew up not really valuing education and not understanding the value of grades and said, he's going to be a doctor, and from a guy who doesn't even like to read books, I was literally told to become an emergency medicine doctor. And for a guy who doesn't even know what prerequisites were for medical school, to give up a billet at JSOC, where I could work with some of the greatest guys in the world, to go to medical school in order to try to save my family, keep it together, and then end up going to Morehouse School of Medicine, by the way, because at this point, the sad part of the story is I became a single parent. And I had 3 little boys. One of my little boys is 6'6" now. He's going to the Marine Corps, he gets it. He at the time was 5 years old, and my youngest was 2 years old. I had 3 little boys as a single parent. So I went to the nearest medical school I've been accepted to. It was Morehouse School of Medicine. This is where the story gets a little interesting. Now, Morehouse, I taught at Morehouse College at Georgia Tech as a Marine officer instructor, so it's familiar to me. Fairly close to where I decided to drive to downtown. It's not a great drive, but I figured, well, this would be a good experience. It was a phenomenal experience. Let me tell you, at a school that's 60% female, 80% black, and about 95% liberal, somehow or another, my senior year, just after President Obama was elected President of the United States, I was elected student body president at Morehouse School of Medicine. Now, that wasn't based on my politics, obviously, or the color of my skin, but on relationships. Off of those authentic relationships that had nothing to do with politics. And one of the problems we have here in America right now, we keep on turning to politics and politicians to solve the problems that we have. That's not the way America's ever solved anything. As a matter of fact, if you want to solve the problem of racism, don't turn to the government to solve that, I promise you. They failed at just about everything else. Why would you turn to them when they're the ones that are dividing us to begin with? That's the problem. We keep on relying on the government to create opportunities for us. We, the people, are the ones who created the opportunities. And we're the ones who are going to solve this problem that we have, not the government that divides us. And you can see that with critical race theory and everything else that they're trying to do to actually divide and conquer and create the government as a savior for everything we do. So I learned a way of a new type of leadership where it wasn't a military way, it was a combined leadership role. It's where we could actually come to an agreement, take a couple steps forward, and a lot of times take a step back and reapproach problems. Sounds a lot like Congress, doesn't it? And then when I graduated, I went back into the Navy this time. I took a step towards the dark side. Still on the Marine Corps base, saving the Marines, and then did my last combat tour over in Afghanistan as the head of emergency medicine over there. That was in 2016. In 2017, I retired, came back to Georgia. I was remarried by this time to a beautiful woman who's an oncologist. I now serve as an emergency medicine doctor, nighttime shifts in the ER in Northside Gwinnett and Northside Duluth. I get to see pretty much all of America's problems, whether it be your depression, your overdoses, your gunshot wounds, and everything else that's coming out of this pandemic. And you can see the hardships that people are facing. You can also see the contrived government problems that we have. You can see that when the government tries to solve things and says, I'm going to give you money, people stay home instead of going back to work. And those people who are in construction, those people who have businesses understand how hard it is to get an employee to come to work right now, or to fulfill their pledge to come to work for you after they've interviewed, because they're just there to get the next paycheck for another month, because the government set that up. The government is not the answer to our problems. If you think that we have an argument here that we're going to win when it comes to talking about other nations, and you compare the United States to other nations around the world, you can talk about Greece, you can talk about China, you can talk about Venezuela, you can talk about all these failed governments that had turned towards socialism to solve their problems and failed. I think there's better examples here, and Marjorie Green just brought up one of them. California and New York is New York being the other one. If you want to see failed policies, and why we should not turn to government for our solutions, compare and contrast Georgia and Florida and Texas to California and New York. Now, California and New York historically are two of the most successful states that ever existed in history. They've had more wealth, diversity, they have a great location, they have port systems, they have resources. They have this huge story of huge success and growth. And yet, for the first time in history, they're now shrinking by millions of people in population. Now that counts the illegal immigrants that are moving to those states. They're still shrinking by millions of people to the point where they're both going to lose a congressional seat in the next election, which is a good thing, by the way. But why are they shrinking? They still have resources, they still have businesses, they still have diversity, they still have topography. Why are they shrinking? There's only one reason they're shrinking, and that is their bad government. And they keep on doubling down on that bad government over and over and over again. And one of the greatest things about the United States is because we are a republic of individual states that can actually decide their fate. We can compare and contrast those states that are successful versus those who are not. Now, in those states that keep on doubling down and increasing regulation, increasing taxes, they are failing drastically. Businesses are moving out. Millionaires are moving out. Where are they coming to? Georgia, Florida, and Texas. You're seeing the economy boom here. We have the #1 economy in the nation for a reason, because we've become friendly, we've become deregulated, we've not taxed our individuals. And you're seeing it even in a microcosm right here in Georgia. Those counties that continue to rely on the people rather than the government to survive are flourishing. Forsyth has flourished, and people are moving there in droves. But the problem is, as people migrate, they bring their socialist ideas to where you live. We've seen it in Gwinnett and Cobb recently. We're seeing people move there and think, well, I want to try what just failed there, here. That's what this fight is all about. And that's what we have to bring to the table when we have these arguments about what's good for America. Always remember that. There's a poem that I think really defines what America's about and how we've been so successful. And by the way, when you talk about success, I've been to at least 50 countries in this world. I've seen some really bad places and I've seen some really good places. But there is no place that's as successful and has as many opportunities as America. And there is no place in this world where you can come from Africa, Nigeria, Congo, it doesn't matter, anywhere in Africa, or anywhere in South America, anywhere in Europe or the Far East. You can come here speaking a different language, have no family, no friends, no money, no connections, and within one generation be wildly successful beyond anybody in any of those other countries. That is what defines America, and that's what we're fighting for. And any of those Democrats who give you that false hope of we have to be more like Europe or more like any other country, they just don't get it. They're selling this false bill of goods that has kept minorities and immigrants down everywhere they've been in power. Look at every single state and every single municipality that is failing minorities, and it is always run by Democrats. That's why I want to see Republicans start leading us here in Georgia, in the big cities, where I think the future of American politics is you're going to see a shift, where the Republican Party has become increasingly more diverse and increasingly more invested in the opportunities for everybody. I don't care what your skin color is, your background, or your gender, opportunities are for everyone. Versus an increasingly white socialist party of the socialist Democrats who are going to promise you nothing but government solutions that have failed everywhere else in the world and will fail here too. So the poem I was going to refer to is called The Oyster and the Eagle. I'm going to paraphrase here. Now I have it memorized. And by the way, I love that Reagan speech about the messenger, by the way. I remember watching it recently, and one thing I can tell you right now, Reagan was quoted tons of times. I've seen Trump quoted tons of times. I can't imagine what kind of quote they're going to try to do for Biden. I've heard a few of them, maybe I think I got them down. It's like, come on, man. His most famous quote. It's a shame. But with the oyster and the eagle, if you think about the eagle and what it represents, the eagle has to fly over miles and miles, hundreds of miles of terrain, foraging its meal every single day, building its nest up in the highest crags where it's exposed to storms and winds and treachery. And if it doesn't eat, if it doesn't kill, it dies. In order to become an eagle, you have to become a fledgling and fly. And a lot of eagles die, by the way, before they make adulthood because it's a treacherous life. Now, compare that to the oyster. An oyster sits there and attaches to something. And whenever it's hungry, it just opens up its shell, lets the food rush in, and then when it gets in danger, it just closes up. It's the eagle, not the oyster, that represents the United States of America. Remember what we're about, remember what defines us, and what gives us historic opportunities you will find nowhere else, and stick to that. I'm Dr. McCormick, I'm running for Congress. God bless you, and God bless the United States.